Well, hello everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin, Assistant Superintendent for Stormwater Quality here at the City of Oklahoma City. I'd like to officially welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn event. I hope everyone has a tasty lunch and is ready to hear from our guest speaker. We will begin momentarily, so I wanted to provide some information to help enhance everyone's experience during the presentation today. In order to reduce background noise, we ask that everyone keep themselves muted during the presentation. If anyone has any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them into chat. Brooke, Varick, and I will be monitoring chat for questions, and we will have our guest speaker answer as many questions as we have time for today. If anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, please send Brooke an email to request it, and I've put her email address into chat so that you'll have it handy. Each of the presentations in this virtual Lunch and Learn series will be recorded and available in chat in this meeting if you rejoin the calendar event again later. We won't be posting these to our okc.gov website, so be sure again to pop back into this calendar event and rejoin the meeting to be able to access the recording. If anyone has any trouble with that, some different networks work differently. So if anyone has any trouble accessing it, just email Brooke and we'll get you a link to that recording. Of course, if anyone has any questions at this time, feel free to type them into chat. Up next is the main presentation for today's webinar. Today, we're going to hear from Mr. Jeff King. Mr. King is employed by American Excelsior Company, Earth Science Division out of Arlington, Texas, as a territory manager since 2008. He has been involved in the planning and execution of numerous construction projects through the years. These projects include pipeline right-of-way, frac tank builds, oil rig drill pads. Didn't know that was going to be a tongue twister today. Residential, commercial, highway, and linear utility projects. Mr. King is CPESC certified and is currently serving on the board of directors for the South Central chapter of the International Erosion Control Association, or IECA, as the Vice President of Marketing. Again, if anyone has any questions during today's presentation, please be sure to type them into chat. And Jeff, if you're ready, go ahead and share your screen and begin your presentation.
First of all, Rebecca, thank you so much to you and Oklahoma City for allowing me to come be a part of this today. I really appreciate it. And also thank you to the guests who are taking time out of their day to hop on and listen to our presentation. Just to kind of give you a little bit of background, choosing the right BMP is very, very important for every single project and every single application. And I'm going to be able to show you why as we move through this presentation. As Rebecca said, if you have any questions, please feel free to type in chat and then she will let me know. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. What we're doing here is we're trying to avoid the race to the bottom and making sure that we are choosing the right type of BMP. I do have a couple tools to make your job easier that you can find on our website, curlex.com. That's CURLEX.com. We have a technical support library with a lot of different CAD details, staple patterns, some different tech tips and different videos, things like that are also in our YouTube channel. And then we have a free design software that we offer to our civil engineers or other project designers called Erosion Works, and that's at erosionworks.com. So sediment control. These are not good results, obviously. Unfortunately, if you've been out in the field any amount of time, you've likely seen these kind of results here. You see a ton of sediment that's here, stuck in this pipe here. You've got other runoff here that's brown and dirty going into your storm drain along with your trash that's going to go down there as well. These are things that we can't have. But the goal here today is we want to try to learn from our mistakes, right? Learn from other people's mistakes too. So if you look at this particular picture here, you can see this runoff here is completely brown and sediment laden. So what that means is that means they don't have any kind of BMPs upstream to the top left corner. So every bit of that runoff is coming down, contaminated runoff is coming down here and going to be going into the water system. Now, there is a difference between erosion control and sediment control. Erosion control works to prevent your soil from moving off of your site, so it keeps it in place. Your sediment control, that works to remove your soil particles that have eroded and are being moved by the water. One of the things that we really stress with municipalities we work with, civil engineers, and just other project designers is that if you've got a proper erosion control plan, that can greatly reduce the need for sediment control. At least take it down to the bare minimum of what you're going to need. This is an example of exactly what I just talked about. So this site here actually doesn't have any kind of erosion control BMPs here upslope. So you know, unfortunately, they've had some rain events, and now look at your ditch here. It's completely full of sediment. It's completely full of trash. It looks like here they did, however, try to use some different sediment control BMPs. It looks like a combination of silt fence along with hay bales, and then you see the remnants of some silt fence here. So what I can tell you is if they had had a proper erosion control plan here on this slope, you're not going to have this kind of result here in this channel. So what is filtering versus damming? So filtering products are going to allow you to have a flow rate that's greater than 35 gallons per minute per square foot. And what they do is they filter by allowing your contaminated runoff to go through the BMP or the matrix of the BMP, and it also helps provide with some velocity dissipation when your flow rate is exceeded. Now, your damming products, those are going to give you a flow rate, maximum flow rate of up to 35 gallons per minute per square foot. These are typically going to be dense products, and you're going to be able to see a few of these as we move into the presentation. These are dense products that are, you know, they're typically just designed to pool the water or back it up. But unfortunately, in the process, they can, you know, redirect the water flow and the energy during those concentrated flows. So filtering versus damming, here's a comparison between the, you know, two of the common devices that are used out into the field. These are both, one is a straw wattle. You can see here the first one is, and the other one is an Aspen wood fiber sediment log. So you can see here, he pours the water over the straw wattle, which is that's your dense device. So your typical straw wattle or straw-based products, those are what we call in the industry non-engineered fibers. So what that means is they're a byproduct of something else. They're not cut to any specific length or manufactured in any specific way. So what that means is in order to meet the diameter requirements for this type of BMP, you have to put a lot of straw fibers into that tube to meet that diameter requirement. And unfortunately, that makes that device very dense, okay? So meaning when it's a dense device, that means the water is going to sheet, you know, you saw the bucket pour over the top of it, the water is going to sheet off of the sides and not flow through the matrix. Now, this is the other side. This is the Aspen wood fiber sediment log, which is not a dense device. This is what we call an engineered fiber inside this device. So that means it's manufactured in a certain way for a certain purpose, or a specific purpose, if you will. So I'll just go ahead and show you. You can see here, he pours the water right over the top of it in the same way, but you get different results. You don't have the water sheeting off of the sides of the device. It actually filters down through the matrix of the device. You know, here's another example in the field of filtering. You can see, look at all of the debris here. So the water was able to filter through and into the drain, but this type of device was able to stop any of this debris or even the sediment here from going into your storm sewer. So back in 2014, there was a study that was done by Auburn University, and they've got some fantastic research on, ditch checks, and these ditch checks are commonly used on a lot of construction sites around the country and around the world for that matter. One of the things that they discovered is that whenever they included an underlay or like a geotextile fabric, so that's that black fabric or filter fabric, it reduced the potential for the scour or erosion underneath the device. So, and the reason why is because it maintained the interface between the device and the channel, if you will. Their data does confirm that dense products can be successful in large-scale testing conditions, by creating longer subcritical flow areas. So this here is going to show you the spacing between the devices, nature's pools and riffles. So you've got a good amount of space here, so it's allowed to filter through this device and it pool back behind this one, pull back behind this one, and pull back behind this one. You can see the flow from your top right down to your bottom. Here we go. So here is this give you an idea of what we're talking about and why a damming device may not work. So with the hydrostatic pressure of the water, as that increases in proportion to the depth measured from the surface, and the increasing weight of the fluid exerting downward force from above, you run the risk of a scour path of water underneath your dense device. So you can see here the blue area indicates the scour path, the brown area is your channel bottom, and the black is going to be your dense object or your dense BMP.
Jeff, do you have any pictures showing in the field where you have that filter fabric underneath? Okay.
I'm not sure in this presentation, to be completely honest. I have some areas where they didn't include it, and you'll be able to see for sure. I do know for sure I have that. It's been a minute since I've done this one, so my apologies for not knowing that off the top of my head. But I can always try to find those photos later on if I need to and provide those.
Cool, thanks.
So dense wattle here, you can see the scour and just the amount of, sediment-laden water here backing up. So this is a common BMP that's used out into the field. This is silt fence. This is considered a dense object. And here is a real-world, example of what I showed you 2 slides ago where the scour path goes underneath. Also notice back behind here, there's little to no vegetation here because the water pooled long enough for it to scour underneath, and now you've got a large rill here in your channel. So that means the integrity of your channel is null and void at this point. Another example of a typical BMP that people use that falls under that dense category is those hay bales. So you can see here, they've got 2 rows of the hay bales. And then the water it diverted its path underneath the device, scoured underneath, and went along and down on its way. More is not always better. Here you've got more, more layers of the straw hay bale here, and again you've got more rills underneath the device here. So the other potential issue that you have is scour that goes around the dense object. So, the brown lines are going to indicate your channel. The black indicates your dense object, and then the blue arrows indicate the scour path of the water around the dense object. The red here, this actually was taken out around Gainesville, Texas, which is actually south of y'all by about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, on the other side of the Oklahoma and Texas border. You can see here the path of the channel was supposed to go this way, and it was supposed to go through the rock check dam or dense object here. But unfortunately, the path of the water and the amount of the flow here caused the water to redivert and scour around and just go around the device. That's where installation comes in. Your installation is going to be your key. When you have these devices in your channels or your ditches, you want to make sure you've got 3 feet of space between your normal pool and the end of the device. So you see that's where the red arrows are indicated. Another potential issue with a dense object is overflow or overtopping, if you will. The hydrostatic pressure builds up here, over the dense object. The water then just rediverts, scours over the top and down, and creates a scour pool at the bottom of the device. So this is where they were talking about where you would want to have a filter fabric underneath the device, and that would not allow for the scouring. So that would stop the potential scouring there. So you can see here's a scour hole, and unfortunately there's no vegetation downstream of where the dense device was. And then this is the footprint of where the product was placed. Another example. This is the same area over in in that Gainesville, Texas area. So you can see here the water came from the top of the photo, hit the dense device, and just scoured over the top of it and ate this reel right here, right smack dab in the middle of this ditch. Just to put into perspective here, this scour hole over these rock check dams, and these are large rocks, or I would call them almost boulders if you ask me. But this is about 3 feet right here. So this is a very, very deep scour hole. Because at the end of the day, the water is going to go somewhere, right? I think we've proven that when I've shown you these examples. It's because there's enough pressure and force from that water and from that flow. That water is either going to, like I said, it's going to scour underneath the device, it's going to scour over the top, or scour around the side. It's not like it's going to hit the device and just stop if it's a concentrated flow. So unfortunately, with the underlayment fabric, that does prevent vegetation establishment. Typically in these projects, you want to have some kind of vegetation, and unfortunately, those fabrics don't really allow for that. Unlike a ECB or erosion control blanket or even a TRM. Another thing with the damming products is it does create ponded water, and that reduces your vegetation establishment as well. And then, again, as I've mentioned earlier, bare soil in your ponded areas, what that does is that introduces a weak spot in your channel, and that's where erosion could start and create even bigger issues that you might have.
Jeff, do you have any good solutions for those things?
Good, like different types of products?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Combinations of things that might work to help some of those things?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, if you're wanting to have vegetation, then yes, you can use those rock checks with you would want to use an underlayment fabric underneath it. But if you're wanting to establish vegetation, what I'll be able to show you here in just a little bit is a filtering type of product is going to be your best bet for being able to do that. And vegetation is nature's erosion control. So that's you definitely want to look at trying to get. In my opinion, you want to have as much vegetation as you can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, Absolutely. Thank you. So see here, here's a lack of vegetation. This is due to the ponding back behind where the dense device is. So you can see here, that's a bare spot. And there's your dense inlet protection device there. So if the water was able to kind of flow through here and into, filter into the inlet, then you're not going to have, ponded water that's going to kill any kind of vegetation that you got there. The other potential is to have blowouts with these devices too. If the flow is fast enough and there's enough force, something like a hay bale is going to blow out. Or you might see, like on a silt fence, you might see the fabric all tattered and pulled off of the metal fencing or away from the wood posts. There are applications for the damming products though. Especially for like your temporary sediment control channels. Again, you want to make sure to include underlayment fabric to prevent that scour, but they're good for sheet flow applications. They are good for perimeter control, and then for your slope interruption as well. So now you're going to get a chance to look at what it does through a filtering device. When the concentrated flow or concentrated runoff flows down through a filtering device, you can see the channel bottom here is brown just like before. You've got the gray is going to indicate the filtering object, and blue is going to be the path of the water. Here's a look at a filtering device. Actually, let me go back to that here just a second. This is supposed to be animated. I apologize for it's not, because it was supposed to start at the bottom. That's all right. We'll move on. Here's a filtering device in the field. This device looks like it's been out there for a while. You can see the sediment-laden water before. The water is able to filter through the device, and it's clear after. Again, using a filtering device as inlet protection in the field. Water was able to filter. It stopped the debris here. You do have a little bit of mud back up there, but what you don't have is you don't have pooled water here in the street. This is give you an inside look of the matrix for these types of filtering devices and the amount of sediment that these things can stop. Your water flowed through the device, and it stopped the sediment right smack dab in the middle of the device. And that's what you want. You don't want that to go out into the water system or into your storm drains.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
No. Sorry. So around Oklahoma City, we see a lot of rock bags being used around storm drain inlets. How would a filtering device help with that as compared to a rock bag?
Well, a rock bag is going to be considered a dense device because rocks are hard, right? So your water's not going, it might filter a little bit better than some of those rock check dams, but it's not going to filter as good as some of these natural fiber devices or some of the other things. But yeah, you could definitely use. So I'm assuming you're talking about, those rock bags being used by these inlets like this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see. Here's an example of. I don't think you're not going to get as much filtration with a rock bag as you would with something like that.
We also seem to get a lot of flooding too, because
Sure.
It slows the water down too much. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, that's where that, we talked a little bit ago about the velocity dissipation. That's kind of where that comes in, right? So it's going to slow the water down, but still allow it to filter through it. So it's not going to back up. Excuse me, I had to get a drink of water there. So here's some filter device evaluations, and this is done pre-flow. So this is actually at our erosion lab up in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, in one of our channels. But it was lined with Aspen wood fiber blanket, and then the sediment device, the filtering device, was placed on the top of it here, and then you've got more downstream, more blankets downstream. Here, just to give you an idea of what it looks like post-flow and just how much sediment was stopped from going into the water system.
Jeff, did it
Now,
stop
this is,
all of the sediment? I'm sorry.
go ahead.
In the previous slide, did it stop all of the sediment? I couldn't.
I mean, it stopped a whole lot of it. I mean, that the water there is pretty, it looks dark, but I'm almost certain there's no way they would have put that in the presentation if it had a bunch of sediment still in it. So yeah, I'd have to say that it stopped a very, very large percentage of the sediment from getting anywhere near the end of this channel.
Cool, thank you.
Because also too, look at it like this: if you design this project like that, like you design a project like that, so you've got a couple different fail safes, because not only do you have this device here, but you've got it lined with a blanket, which gives you, especially you know, the Aspen fiber gives you a higher Manning's in, or what we call a roughness factor, and that also catches sediment and stops. That's why you guys are starting to see in and around Oklahoma City, you're starting to see the buffer strips being used in place of silt fence, you know, up against the curb, because those buffer strips are made out of Aspen wood fibers, and when they get wet, they puff up. And the whole point is they stop the sediment from running off of the site and catching in the blanket and into the street. So you've got your fail safe here as well. You know, this is a filtering device in the field. You can see here, unlike the previous slide, they did not line this channel with any kind of blankets on the side or even in the middle, but just look at the amount of sediment that this thing stopped. You've got a vegetated channel using a filtering device. And so you remember I showed you earlier with the dense devices where you would have the ponding back behind it, and unfortunately you wouldn't have any kind of vegetation. Well, this is not the case, you know, for these filtering devices, because again, it allows the water to pass through and filter. So it serves that purpose there, but it also doesn't pond it up and allows you to get that vegetation that you would want here. You know, just as a reminder, you know, the filtering products, those are allow for a greater flow rate than 35 gallons per minute per square foot. You know, this, again, just the inside of the product matrix that shows just the amount of sediment that's been captured here. You know, the porous design does allow for the water to flow through that fiber matrix, and it will stop sediment and other contaminants within the matrix. You know, that Great Lakes Aspen, it is a highly effective natural filter. So just a little bit of background here. This was done with some coal-fired power plants, and, you know, they've got the fly ash slurry. And we looked at testing just to see, you know, how much we'd be able to filter out. And so here's a look at the results. You know, you've got the contaminated runoff here. It filters through the Aspen wood fibers, and then on the other side of it, this is the runoff. It's crystal clear. So does anyone have any other questions to this point?
I don't see anything in chat. If anyone would like to type in chat or unmute yourself, feel free to ask.
Yeah, this is
Sure,
Mike Cliff. This is Mike Cliff with BNSF Railway. I've got a quick question. So I missed the first like 5 minutes of the presentation.
Yes,
Is
sir.
there going to be like something with part numbers or a better description of what these products are so I can give them to somebody else?
We could talk about that offline. I didn't want to do a branded presentation at this point, just because, typically when you work with municipalities, they're not really allowed to kind of promote that kind of thing. And as you noticed on her introduction slide or the welcome slide, it says at the bottom, they're not trying to promote any type of product or specific vendor. I'd be happy to talk with you offline and get you whatever information that you need for that.
Yeah,
sure.
That's perfect. I appreciate it. I'm just always shocked when I send folks out to install BMPs and they're not really that familiar with what products are out there, or the familiar straw wattle show up and they're not that effective. So yeah, I'll get in touch with you offline.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Anyone? You're welcome. Anyone else?
Oh, I just posted, I think apparently multiple times. I didn't mean to. But I just posted your contact information and the website into chat again, Michael. So if you wanted to, it looks a little wacky. I apologize. It like copied things twice or something. I'm not sure what it did, but anyway. So yeah, if you wanted to pop in there and look at chat, and you should be able to get Jeff's contact information. Does anyone else have any questions at this time?
All right. Well, if not, we'll go ahead and proceed. And what we could do kind of at the end is just kind of open it up for an open discussion for the last few minutes, Rebecca, if we have time.
Yeah,
and so if people want to think about whatever kind of questions they might have for that, or just those kind of things, I'd be happy to participate in that. So independent research has shown that the Great Lakes Aspen Excelsior fibers do filter out contaminated runoff. They do remove hydrocarbons, which are typical components of your asphalts, your fuels, your oils, and your greases. And that the source for that is Boving and Zhang in their Chemisphere 54 issue. I can provide that as well, but better than that, I can actually show you. Just a little bit of background here. So this video and I believe the next video, they are on our YouTube channel. We did these videos around the time of the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And they were actually featured on a couple different cable news channels as well during prime time. Yeah, and so the other thing is the Great Lakes Aspen Excelsior fiber is an EPA approved oil sorbent. So let me show you. So the point is, actually, I'll get to that here in a second. Water's crystal clear.
Jeff, we did have one question pop in, if that's all right.
Sure.
Wayne asks, is Aspen Excelsior a generic or an engineered product?
Well, the fiber type, so the way they cut the fibers is engineered. So like for those sediment logs that you see, those are engineered. So it's the same exact type of fibers that go in the Aspen fiber wood blankets that you see. We engineer those, yes. They're cut with the curls, the barbs, they're cut to 6 inches. It's a really neat process, actually, but yes, they are engineered.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So here's another example of that, but to show you with the actual BMPs. This is a wave simulator. It is lined with the bottom with an Aspen wood fiber blanket, and then it also has the Aspen wood fiber sediment logs going across the top of it. I'll go ahead and let you see it. We'll watch this a couple times so you can see. So you can see crystal clear runoff at the bottom. Let's watch that again. Yeah, these are my two favorite videos to show people out in the field. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the typical BMPs that are used, aside from these, you're not going to get that kind of performance from any other fiber type. And you certainly aren't going to get that from a damming device either. Give you an idea what the filtered runoff looks like. So there's a lot of different applications for your filtering products. So your temporary or permanent sediment control channels. You know, the porous matrix, it usually translates to a flexible device. That was the other thing that I did not mention earlier. With those damming devices, specifically like the straw wattle, that's a brittle device and not very flexible at all. Whereas the Excelsior sediment log, that actually it's not brittle and it is flexible. And that's going to allow you, you know, better intimate contact with your subgrade. They are good for sheet flow, perimeter control, and, you know, slope interruption. So just kind of to summarize, or if anybody has any questions at this point, let me know. But to summarize, every BMP, including those dense devices, they do have their place when they're installed properly for the right application. The large-scale testing has shown that those dense damming devices work well for a temporary sediment control application, but that is in conjunction with that fabric. And these are applications where you know, again, we mentioned you are not wanting to get or establish vegetation there. You know, and again, they do have the damming products, they do have a good history in your sheet flow applications, such as your perimeter control around your sites and slope interruption. But the one thing I want to make sure that y'all understand is that these two types of devices, they don't function or perform equally in the areas of the concentrated flows. There's a lot of hydraulic challenges that are created if you use a damming device and use it without an underlayment fabric, especially in the permanent channelized flow areas where you're trying to get vegetation. Your filtering devices are, you know, those are designed, again, to dissipate the velocity of the water or the concentrated flow. And you want to filter out any kind of contaminated runoff. And also, again, encourage vegetation establishment because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, vegetation is Mother Nature's ultimate erosion control BMP. Rebecca, I went a little bit early or a little bit fast. I think my apologies. We've got a little bit of time to kill. So if you wanted to open it up, I'd be happy to take any questions, or I can go back and show slides or videos, whatever we need to do.
Well, I don't see any questions in chat at this time. So if anyone would like to unmute themselves and ask some questions, that'd be perfect. Or you can type them into chat if you don't want to voice them out loud.
See this right here, this video that I did that I showed, these two videos. I feel like that's relevant, especially on the industrial stormwater side. Would you agree, Rebecca?
Yeah, could be useful for oil spills of any type, because we do a lot of hazmat type incidents as well here in Oklahoma City, and I think that they would be beneficial in those types of applications, as well as protecting outfalls at industrial sites. Certainly construction sites aren't immune to oil leaks and stuff like that either. So I think it's a great all around bonus benefit for using something like that.
Sure. Couple fun facts about the aspen wood fiber. One, aspen is not a tree. It's considered a weed. And number two, it is the largest living organism in North America is a aspen stand out west. It's somewhere around 17 square miles. Aspen takes up a good portion of the country because you've got aspen out west, but the stuff we use is Great Lakes aspen, so it's up around the Great Lakes region. It's got a lot of uses, other uses aside from this. In fact, like our company has been in business since 1888 with this fiber. It's used as a packaging fiber. So if any of you have seen the movie A Christmas Story, when Ralphie's dad gets his special award, or the infamous leg lamp, he breaks open that big crate, pulls the leg lamp out, but those fibers that are actually in there protecting that leg lamp are the same fibers that you're looking at right here. Then also another fun fact too, another movie fact is in the movie Untouchables, when Elliot Ness or Kevin Costner goes into one of the first warehouses he raised, and they crack open the wooden crates expecting to find contraband booze, and they find those umbrellas. That's aspen wood fiber on the inside of that as well. It does also for like a blanket type application. It holds its weight in moisture, so it creates a greenhouse effect, which means it speeds up your vegetation or germination of your seed. And it does, the way we engineer these fibers in both the logs that you see and then the blankets that you've seen too. So we cut these in a way to where they're curled and there's little barbs in there. So the fibers, when they get wet, they puff up and expand and they curl and interlock with one another, but it also Velcros down to your soil. So that gives you the intimate contact with your soil. So that's relevant for both a blanket or ECB, but also these filtering devices that we've been talking about today as well.
Cool. Since we had a couple people show up a little bit late, would you mind also showing the demonstration towards the beginning, where you show them pouring the bucket of water over the two different types of products, the filtering and the damming products?
Absolutely. Those are also on our YouTube. That's one of my favorite videos to show as well. Normally that's all in one video, but I actually gave this presentation. I had to record this for the large International Erosion Control Association trade show that was up in, I believe it was in Minneapolis this last year, but I couldn't go, and I recorded it, and it was a virtual presentation. So one, it's non-branded, but two, we had to separate out some of these videos. So that's why it's in the format that it's in, but sure, I'll show that to you. All right, so again, so what this is going to demonstrate is a damming device is going to be a brittle device, a dense device that is going to redirect your sheet flow or your flow of your water. And these wattles here, these straw wattles that a lot of people use, these are non-engineered fibers on the inside, so they're not cut to any specific length. So you're just basically cramming a ton of fibers into these nets to meet these diameter requirements for the straw wattles. And so this is what happens when sheet flow hits one of these, you can see the water does not filter down through it. It sheets off of the side. Go ahead and show that one more time. So in comparison to a filtering device, specifically this one that has engineered fiber into it, it is not brittle and it is not dense. So you can see here, when he pours the water over the top of it, it actually filters down through the device. Which is going to alleviate any kind of scouring issue that you might have. I should have probably pointed that out earlier too. What else?
I think that's really cool. And, like you mentioned, the City of Oklahoma City cannot officially endorse any specific products. That's why we always have to have the asterisk statements that we don't recommend or endorse any specific products. But we still like to have webinars to show people, some of the different products that are out there, so that way you can be armed with knowledge, because knowledge helps everyone. Each site is unique, whether it's an industrial facility or a construction site. They each have their own challenges, and just knowledge is power. So seeing some of these different things in action, I hope to help inspire people to do some research and see what's out there and see what will work best for their facilities.
Well, you're absolutely right. Knowledge is power, and it is important for people to know what other BMPs are out there, because unfortunately, there are still some people that will copy and paste a specification that's 25, 30 years old. The technology in the industry has evolved significantly since then. At this point, a lot of states, for example, are not allowing those hay bales. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Oklahoma doesn't really allow those.
Yeah,
that's an outdated BMP to use. There are way better BMPs available right now to use. Another thing that I see, and I mentioned earlier about the buffer strips, and those are starting to be used a lot more in and around Oklahoma City. That's an alternative to what is typically used, which is a silt fence. There's degradable options available that are better for the environment. Think about this: you could use even a wattle, one of these sediment logs, or a buffer strip in place of a synthetic silt fence. And think about this: where does that silt fence go when the project's done? It goes to a local landfill. Yeah, it goes to a local landfill if they come out and do what they're supposed to and remove the BMP and close out their permits. So, what I'm trying to pass along is to reiterate also what Rebecca said is there's a lot more sustainable BMPs. And I'd be lying if I said I was the only manufacturer out there that makes these types of things. There are other manufacturers that have great products out there as well. I just would hope you would take a look at ours too, is all. With that being said, if anybody has any questions, I'm here for another 10 minutes or longer if need be.
Yeah. We'll wait for just a minute or so and see if anyone would like to unmute or pop a question into chat.
Sure.
Now we need the Jeopardy music playing.
I hope that you all got something out of this, because this is not a typical type of presentation that you're going to really see out in the field from a whole lot of folks. It's just something that's near and dear to us. My boss has given this presentation for about the last 5 years, 6 years maybe. Before then, in fact he wrote it. That's Mr. Kurt Kelsey. We really try to get into the science of these things too. and make sure that we have numbers to back the stuff up that we're out saying in the field.
Cool. Savannah posted, she doesn't have a question, but she wanted to thank you for taking time to talk with everyone about this. So thank you, Savannah, for that kind comment. I'm going to go ahead and start out my ending session, but if anyone wants to pop into chat or unmute themselves, just feel free to hang out for a little bit. We'll hang out here for a little bit and get everyone's questions answered. So as a reminder, if anyone would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today's presentation, please send Brooke an email to request. I did put her email address into chat again. We ask that you don't request certificates in chat. Just send Brooke an email because we may not have your email address linked to your username on Teams. Wayne says, could we revise the title of the presentation to "See You at the Top"? So.
That's awesome. I'll have to mention that to Craig and Kurt.
Very nice. And as I've mentioned, a recording of today's presentation will be available hopefully for everyone by rejoining this meeting, and you should be able to access it from chat as soon as it's done saving. But if you have any problems accessing it and you would like to see it again, please send Brooke an email about that as well. And thanks everyone for attending today's session. We hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. We'll see you at one of our upcoming webinars, I hope. June 15th at 1 p.m. is the next installment in our monthly stormwater webinar series. The presentation will be provided by Chris Stewart of our industrial stormwater section. And Chris will be going over industrial inspections and what to expect. We do have 2 more virtual lunch and learn sessions, hopefully in the works. If anyone still needs to register for either the monthly webinar series or is interested in the next virtual lunch and learn, please reach out to Brooke. We just send the virtual lunch and learns one at a time because we're still working on confirming a couple of those. So hope everyone has a great afternoon. We'll be watching chat. And again, if anyone wants to unmute themselves, feel free to do so. I guess that's it. Thanks, Jeff.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone who hopped on to attend.